Okay, so should be live on YouTube or should be starting up pretty soon. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Shanika, current chapter president, and yeah, thank you. So for those that are probably new to BDPA, just quick introductions. So BDPA is a nonprofit membership organization. So we're mostly focused on um, providing exposure to our community. So professional development, overviews on technical advancements and potential fields to jump into. So which will be Chris will be sharing with us today. Like our motto is advancing careers from the classroom to the boardroom. So something that I guess for those that are interested in getting involved with BDPA, we're always looking for people that are interested in volunteering, either with topics to present to our community or in our STEM program. So in we've been running our STEM program from January, sorry, and we'll be running up until our conference in August. And in that STEM program, we're introducing mostly middle school and high school kids to computer science topics. So they're coming in and either learning web development, learning about data science, learning about how to create, I guess, formulate problems or formulate solutions to problems with IT research and mobile app development. So those are kind of the streams that we've been focusing on this year, and always need folks to come out and volunteer to kind of help with curating the content. Another area that we're still growing is, I would say, like our I guess collegiate focus. So reaching out more to our local campuses here in Atlanta and getting more involvement and opportunities for college students. Something that just recently closed is our Atlanta Dreamer Scholarship, which this is our second year offering. So if you happen to know any students that are looking for an extra push, definitely next year we hope to offer that scholarship again, hopefully. And then there's also a fundraising opportunity to kind of throw out there, I guess, wink, wink. If anyone wants to help fund that scholarship fund so that we can actually provide for more students, definitely let me know. One, I guess maybe last plug. So again, as I was mentioning earlier, the conference is coming up in August. So for those that basically want to promote registration for the conference, and we're also looking for companies that are interested in coming out and coming out to present. So another plug there. Oops, something just dropped. So I think, and so again, with the companies coming out to the conference, we wouldn't be able to do any of this without our sponsors. So State Farm is one of our major sponsors, has helped us with the Zoom platform that we're here to have present our content to you with, and Matrix. Matrix has been partnering with us for the last couple of years and bringing content to present to the community. So I'll hand it over to John to introduce our speaker.
Absolutely. So again, I'll put a little plug in for BDPA for folks that aren't really that familiar with it. So there's 30 BDPA chapters across the country. So last year, the Atlanta chapter was won the chapter of the year across all 30 of those. And largely it was due to Shanika and Victor Montgomery and all of the work that they do with kids and STEAM. And there's some awesome mentorship there, and giving their time back to the community. So really awesome stuff. So can't brag about that enough. But yeah, it's been a wonderful partnership for Matrix to be involved with BDPA the last couple of years. This year, we've just, given what the market is like, we thought it made sense to just highlight the Atlanta companies that are our major logos across the city, and the reason being is is most of those big companies like Home Depot, they're doing a lot of hiring, and it's not an easy thing to do right now. Chris is a senior recruiter there, and I think there's others from Home Depot on the call as well. And it's, there's a shortage of IT people, and this we thought by doing this we could add some value, give some exposure, to maybe a community that it didn't have contacts with, and also just to be able to give back, and share some technology knowledge, as well as just how things run within these large enterprise companies, from the process as well as just different initiatives going on. So anyways, Chris, thank you for agreeing to do this. Chris and I worked together at Matrix for a couple of years, and probably one of my all-time favorite recruiters in our Atlanta branch. And as you could tell, he's like completely a Renaissance guy. Like you hear him talking about gaming, building a PC. He was doing like jujitsu stuff. He'd come in with, a little shiner under his eye. I'm like, what are you doing? And then he probably had like the best baby reveal announcement to our team when I think your first baby was born. You had the two boys, so he's got two Datsuns.
Oh.
And he was reading a book to them, and that's how he made the announcement about you've got a new brother coming. So anyways, so Chris McKeon, Home Depot. I think we're going to talk tonight a good bit about like supply chain, as well as like data analytics, and then also just your point of view. Why Home Depot? Why are you there? Why do you stay? What the process is like, maybe some tips too on just job search. So we'll, obviously, Shanika's recording this. It'll be on the BDPA website. We can push it out through social media. So I know it's a light crowd. It's summer. It's hard to get people to join in the summer. But again, thanks, Chris, for being here, and I'll flip it on to you.
Oh, thanks, JV. The check is in the mail. All those nice things that you said to me. You should be receiving it in 3 to 5 business days. No, I'm super happy to be here. JV and I have kept up a relationship since our Matrix days, and he was nice enough to ask me to come and talk to y'all. I've got a lot to say on these topics, and I've got a lot to say about data analytics and supply chain and your job search and everything. So I'm really excited to dive right in, and I will share my screen and we can get started. All right, can everybody see what we got going on over here?
Yeah.
Give me 1 second, because what I'm gonna do, sorry, is I'm gonna move it so it's in front of me, so I don't look like I'm looking off to my left the whole time. Okay, can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay, is it full screen for you guys?
Yes, I think so.
Perfect. Well, everybody, thank you again for having me. I'm super excited to be able to kind of go through some of this with you, talk with you about Home Depot, why I work where I do, why I like it so much, what we're doing in supply chain, what data analytics looks like, just from not only like, I'll give you a little bit of like a Home Depot perspective, but I'll also talk about the market as well, and kind of like, how that is all shaping up. Spoiler alert, it's pretty much the same as every other market, job market out there. But there's a lot of good information in here, and I'm gonna, shameless plug myself. If you guys ever have any questions or you're interested in not just only data analytics, but any other role at the Home Depot, please, my email address is here. I'll also put it in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me. If I'm not the recruiter that is covering whatever space that you're in, I will know. I will know who is. So I welcome the outreach, and I'm always happy to connect people and connect talent with other recruiters in our organization. So just a quick overview of some of the stuff we'll go over today. I'm just going to introduce myself very quickly, and then we'll jump into data analytics, supply chain and the Home Depot and how all these things are connected, and kind of give you a little bit of a high level overview there. And then I want to jump into like job seeker best practices, right? There's a lot of, I see it on TikTok all the time. There's a lot of bad information flying around, and I've been doing this a long time. So I'm hoping to set the record straight on a couple things. There's one thing in particular that I'm very much looking forward to talking to you all about. And then I want to kind of bring the conversation to a close by talking to you about like why I work at the Home Depot, why it's important to me, why I choose to work there and bring my whole self to work every day. My coworkers think I'm a crazy person because I go into the office 5 days a week. When we have, as recruiters, have the luxury of working remotely. I don't care for that. I'm not a work from home guy. I like being in the office. I like being in the building. I like the energy. So yeah, I'm a little bit of an oddity from that perspective. So this is just a little bit about me. I'm 11 years and counting in the field of talent acquisition. I have, if you named it, I've staffed it. Everything from doctors, lawyers, call center people, call center directors, tech writers, anything, and a bunch of different companies. Like these were just the biggest ones that I could remember, and I'm sure there's more than this. So obviously Total Systems, E-Trade, EY, did a lot of work with Palo Alto Networks, the cybersecurity company at a previous job. And also I was the main account lead for Riverbed Technologies for their professional services arm. So a lot of work. I've spent a lot of time in the industry. The majority of my experience has been in technology. It's where I feel the most comfortable. It's what I know the most about. I enjoy the nuts and bolts of technology and how it can enhance a business's capabilities to do their job. But you see here, legal, healthcare, call center, cybersecurity, network optimization, referring specifically to Riverbed, and anything in orange are all the spaces that I have supported at Home Depot. So software engineering, user experience, enterprise product management, and now most recently data analytics as it relates to supply chain. I'm also a writer. I'm a content contributor and author to LinkedIn. I've written articles on a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about here today. And I'm also, proud husband, father of 2 boys. Just had my youngest is 7 months old. And I'm a mediocre guitar player, in case anybody's wondering. So what you all came here for? Let's talk a little bit about data analytics and the job market. So look, it's no surprise, guys, that right now the demand for analysts far outstrips the supply. It is a highly sought after field. More and more companies are realizing the value of data. And even a company like Home Depot, there was a period of time, and a recent history at a time where we were sitting on all this data and didn't know what to do with it, right? Like and companies now are coming to the realization that data is really the new currency, and it's really how they're going to move their businesses forward in the coming years. Obviously, the global market for data analytics has grown 10% in just 2 years. So obviously now we're again living in a post-pandemic world. There's been a fundamental shift in how companies market and move things through a supply chain and conduct their HR capabilities. There's been a global shift, and data is helping to drive that and keep pace with that shift that's taking place. And you'll see down there the last one, 52% of businesses consider data analytics and predictive analytics to be primary parts of their operation. I mean, this comes as no surprise, I think, to anybody that data is the new currency, and data analysts are essentially the bank tellers, right? Like they are the people. Data analysts and data scientists are essentially the ones that are saying, hey, this data is worth something, this data is not worth anything. So they are the ones that are helping make the business make informed decisions, whereas before it was maybe like a gut instinct or a reaction, or someone would pore over a spreadsheet to try and draw, it's hours and hours, right, to try and draw some sort of conclusions. Those days are gone. Data analysts and data scientists, now this is their thing, right? So in an incredibly, incredibly competitive market, what is needed? Basic skills are not enough. And I cannot overstate that. at the Home Depot, we look for really any data analytics role, any role that has a data analytics title. We're looking for approximately the same three things: heavy SQL. Tableau is our data visualization tool of choice. And if we're lucky, maybe you have some Python experience and maybe some R. Python and R are usually find those in conjunction with each other. But that's really what we're looking. That's what we're looking for across the board. But those basic skills are not enough. A lot of these roles are stakeholder facing or customer facing. So you're going to have to interact with people and then convey technical concepts to people who are maybe not technical. And how do you do that? And how do you articulate these complex ideas to people who maybe don't understand or it's not relevant to their business? I don't want to say don't care, because I think everybody cares, but how do can you do that? Do you know the right story to tell for the right audience? A C-level executive is not really going to have an appetite for the minutia of data analytics, right? They want the big picture. So how are you conveying that? Are you telling the right stories with your visualization of the data? Like, these are all things that you should be able to demonstrate on your resume. And like a certification, if you're certified in BigQuery, that's not enough anymore, right? It's much in the same way that having a bachelor's degree is not what it used to be. Now everybody's saying get your master's. This is the same concept here. And again, so like I say here, certifications are nice, but they're not silver bullets. Career trajectories. So one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was you should start thinking not about the next role, but the one after that, because that sort of strategic thinking is kind of what is going to propel you forward in your career. So it's probably, if you're an individual contributor and you're starting out as a data analyst, it's probably a good idea to start, doing some self-assessment and saying, hey, do I want to manage people? Some people do, some people don't. I would love to manage people someday. I know that about myself, but some people don't care for that. And, it's good to have that assessment now, because then now you can start plotting a course forward in your career and start mapping out how to get there. The other part, is data analysts don't have to become data scientists. A lot of people view data analytics as, hey, this is my foot in the door to be a data scientist one day. They are similar in some respects, but not in others. You can have a long, fulfilling, very lucrative career in data analytics and never become a data scientist. Never do any linear regression. Never do any modeling. Never do any machine learning, you still can have a career. But if you want to go into the data science realm, this provides a great setting for that, but it doesn't have to be. So it just know what you want to do, I guess, is the takeaway there. As it relates to the Home Depot, data analytics spans so many verticals for us. Finance, supply chain, marketing and online, HR, so many. I couldn't even fit them in on the slide. But it's becoming such an integral part to our business. And the enterprise is so large, it would be impossible for us to make informed decisions without an army of data analysts showing us, building the dashboards, going through the data, deciding what's relevant. We couldn't do it. And I'll give you some examples. So there's a lot of things in a lot of data analyst teams, in supply chain, that I'm constantly amazed by what they do. It's stuff that I would never have thought of in a million years. My favorite one to talk about is there's an entire team at Home Depot dedicated to forecasting, using data to forecast how many containers we're going to need for the rest of the year. Who thinks of that stuff? I thought you just went to the container store and bought a container and put it on a ship. I had no idea. This same team is the same team that's actually figuring out, based on priorities and any other number of inputs, what needs to go on the container first, what needs to come off the container first, what needs to get to the store the fastest. Like they're the ones doing all that work. It's very interesting, and stuff that you just don't think about when you go to Home Depot and pick up a hammer. We have another team that is working that is using data to throttle sort of things that get delivered to stores based on need, right? And so, for example, We have some, not every Home Depot has the same square footage footprint, right? So some stores are a little bit bigger, some stores are smaller. But this team is actually working on on space constrained stores that tend to be on the smaller side, working with them to figure out like, okay, how do we throttle the automatic ordering of certain items so they don't, pile up in the walkways, right? It becomes a safety issue then. It's not a really good shopping experience at that point. So how do we throttle that? So they're working on that. It's very interesting. There's another team that's working on, okay, how do we prioritize things coming through our distribution centers, right? So for example, if there's a hurricane that is going to hit South Florida, how do we dial back some of some items in a distribution center in South Florida to allow bandwidth and prioritize plywood or 2x4s or whatever, or generators or whatever the community is going to need. And they're using data to support and figure all this out. And I could go on for days. There's 50 something teams that do all kinds of interesting stuff, but those are just some examples. So if you're interested in a career in data analytics and any of what I just said sounds interesting, you should probably chat after this is done.
Hey, Chris, could I ask you to, sorry to break your rhythm, but it allows you a chance to get a sip of water. Maybe talk about like the types of people that you bring in. Maybe what do you typically hire more? And I don't know the titles for like, is it like a junior data analyst and then data analyst, senior data analyst, principal, or what? Maybe the progression.
So for data analyst, you start off as a data analyst title.
Okay.
Then you can progress to senior data analyst. Then you can look at management, or from there you can start to explore data science opportunities. And then you would probably make the jump to probably would maybe go to, depending on what team you started as, an associate data scientist, lead data scientist, or maybe I think they call it a lead now. And then and that's typically how the progression goes. As for people that we hire, we're honestly the market is the market, right? And we are looking for anybody that can tell a story, has excellent communication, can doesn't just say like, hey, I can do SQL, right? It's not just I know how to query, but knows how to do do sub queries and table merges and like higher level SQL things. And even at the data analysts, like the teams have set the bar very high for themselves. So they try to maintain the skill level best they can, but the market is the market. So whether you've got 1 year of experience or 5, we are open for business. So does that answer your question, JD?
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
So now I want to jump into, this is more of a general conversation just around job seeker best practices. And I would also like to point out that if you are a fan of the actor Lou Diamond Phillips, this gentleman that we have here looks so much like him. And I've said this to multiple people. This guy looks like he could be his son. And I just felt the need to call that out. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about, guys. And it's how are you writing your resume? There's a lot of misinformation out there. Everyone thinks they have a silver bullet, and the truth is there is no silver bullet to writing your resume. But I can help you hedge your bets. So at the average time for a recruiter, 6.25 seconds, and I can look at your resume and make a determination as to whether or not I'm going to give you a phone call as a recruiter. The reason for this is because the average phone call, at least for me, takes about 30 minutes. I need to be very targeted with who I call and where my time goes. So if the resume, like I call it, they call it the red flag rule. If your resume is written in such a way that I start to accumulate too many red flags, eventually I have a threshold and I will say, okay, too many, I don't know if this guy's going to be a fit. We'll table him for later. Maybe I revisit it if my search doesn't go well. But that's kind of typically how I like to operate as a recruiter. 80% of our time is looking at key indicators, but not just your background. We're looking at things like keywords, right? Like we're looking, like skills, technologies you've used. Your resume shouldn't read like a like a job description, right? Yes, I know that you did something at your job, but I kind of want to also know how you did it. So it wouldn't be advantageous for you to say, led effective teams. Well, yeah, okay, how'd you do that? Like that is a much more powerful bullet point. And these are things to think about as you write your resume, because we're not just looking at job and title. That is what we're looking at. But that's not the only thing. We look at it kind of holistically. As a recruiter, I try not to look at names. And please don't put your picture on a resume. Please don't do it. It's a terrible practice. I try not to look at names. I try to stay away from like titles of colleges. I will kind of glance and see if you have a degree or certifications, or even better. But the names of colleges are relevant, and names of people are, when I first look at a resume, are also, I find, to be not a good practice as a recruiter, because look, I am human. I have biases like anybody else, right? Whether they're conscious or unconscious. So I have to, as a recruiter, I have to kind of check myself. I have to know that, like, hey, I want to give, I want to look at this person for who they are and the accomplishments they've made, and not have maybe be swayed one way or the other subconsciously because their name sounds one way or another. That's a recruiter best practice. I think every recruiter should do it, but I think it's also worth noting that sometimes, there's thousands and tens of thousands of recruiters in this country, and probably not all of them are going to do that, but that's just something I like to do. If certain skills are required, I am a big fan of tailoring your resume to the job you want, but in a broad sense. So don't look at a job description and tailor your resume to that job description. It's not a good use of your time. If let's say it takes you 30 minutes to do that, and you apply to 10 jobs a week, right? That's 5 hours of your week gone, and you could be applying for other jobs. So it's just not. So when I say from a broad sense, you should definitely be tailoring your resume to the job you want, in the sense of, well, okay, I'll use myself as an example. I would like to manage people someday. I would like to be a lead recruiter. I have the title of lead recruiter someday. I am going to specifically call out things in my resume and things that I have done that make it seem like that's the next logical leap for me. So that's also, something to be considered. What to include in your resume? Obviously, areas of expertise. I would stay away from things like, Microsoft Excel suite, good communication. These things they don't add any value. But if you say, comfortable having difficult conversations and operating in complex environments, you see how these are different. Saying that you have great communication, well, yeah, everybody will say that about themselves. But if you can go a step further, give something a little more tangible, that will only elevate your resume. Obviously, list your education. But this is the big one, guys, a minimum of 5 to 10 bullet points for each job. And it's okay. Bullets typically shouldn't go any longer than 3 lines. I like to try to keep them at 2. But if you have fallen victim to your resume should fit on 1 page, guys, I'm here to tell you that is not the case. You are free. Your resume, you cannot. That is your experience. Do not sacrifice, and I say this in the next column, do not sacrifice details for length. How recruiters, and I'm gonna let you a little peek behind the curtain, how recruiters operate, we are using a series of keyword searches, okay? It's very rudimentary, but how it works is that if the keyword we're looking for is used more times in your resume is going to be considered more relevant and be elevated to the top of the search. When you sacrifice details, you miss out on using potential keywords. So you may have done all the things I need you to do, but because your resume is now, instead of being 5th, it's 50th, I may never even get to you. If your resume comes out to be a page and a half, 2 pages, that's fine. Because you're elevating your resume using those keywords, so if I need SQL, and every line you say use SQL to blah, 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 use SQL to blah, blah, blah. Now we've got SQL 5 times in the first paragraph. Your resume is going to come right to the top. Where this comes from, it started late 80s, early 90s. This sort of philosophy arose because that's when everything was faxed. And I'm a hiring manager. I don't want 500 pieces of loose leaf paper floating around my desk. I have other things to do than keep my desk organized like that. So yes, your resume should be, it makes sense to have your resume on one page. Guys, I haven't printed a resume in 10 years. Everything is done digitally. That thought is just no longer applicable to today's age. So please, 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 please. Obviously, clearly, I'm very passionate about this. Put the details in your resume. That is your experience. You earned it. Brag on yourself. And I even say that here on the side. Brag on yourself, guys. Like, this is the only time it is in the resume and in interviewing. Bragging on yourself. It's the only time it's socially acceptable, are in these two places, on your resume and in an interview. It is so important to realize that it's your experience. You got that certification, right? You did the continuing ed. Put it on there. I'm also a big fan of putting education right up at the top of the resume. So you can get your resume right up at the top, along with any certifications or continuing ed you've done. Huge fan of that. Don't tuck it all the way in the back. It should be front and center. The other thing I like to mention when fleshing out bullet points: measurable income, measurable outcomes and impacts. I reduced redundancies by this much. Okay, I was able to cut costs by this much because of the work I did. How did I do it? This is how. Use SQL to identify whatever, however you want to word it, right? Those are measurable things and things that are impactful, rather than just saying use SQL to optimize work processes, right? Like there's a, if you look at your resume, I promise you can probably always find, I could probably do it in my own, one bullet point that can be enhanced by thinking of it end to end, and not only stating what you did, but how you did it. And then again, this is consistent formatting. If you used bullet points in your first job, don't use squares in the next one. Don't use check marks. Try to keep it consistent. It's just a cleanliness thing, and it shows that you are, you have an attention to detail, that this is important to you. It's just there's a lot of subliminal messages being sent when resumes are not do not feature consistent formatting. So just make sure that everything is consistent all the way through. Again, in the I've been jumping around the slide a little bit, but considerations: accounting for gaps in employment. This is another big one. I talk to a lot of people who will have a gap in employment. I'm always curious to know why. And I have saved maybe one or two times in my entire career. I've never had someone give me like an excuse for that gap that I found to be like unacceptable, right? It's usually, oh, I had a medical issue that I had to go to rehab. I had to go to, rehabilitation for. I talked to a gentleman today who had his leg amputated. So he's been, in like a convalescence with his family, and they've been helping him learn to use his prosthetic for the last 2 years, right? So accounting for those gaps on your resume go a long way to what I was saying before, not accruing red flags in my brain, right? Because now that's something I have to remember to talk to you about when I call you. Account for it. Hey, took time off to be a stay-at-home dad. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying this is what I was doing during this time and why I wasn't in the workforce. It's a and oftentimes it's something very noble, like being a stay-at-home dad or taking care of an elderly parent. These are things that, while they're not traditionally business related, they're important to account for on a resume so that someone doesn't make an assumption about you, the job seeker. Speaking of assumptions, don't make assumptions about the reader. Don't assume that they know an acronym that you know. Don't assume that they know, the process in which data is cleaned and scrubbed. One of the biggest pieces of feedback I get from interviews is, or from resumes rather, is, hey, I don't have enough details here. I don't see any relevant experience. I don't see what this guy was doing to make him a good candidate. And that can all be, and you could have been doing exactly what this hiring manager needs. And I have to then go explain, hey, I had a conversation with this person, and it becomes this whole thing. And sometimes I win that argument and sometimes I don't. So don't make assumptions about your reader, spell it all out for them, write your resume as if you're going to hand it to someone who has no idea what you're doing, and that's going to be the best practice that I can give you here. And again, brag on yourself, guys. It's your experience. You earned it. Do not sugarcoat. Do not tone it down. No, shout it from the rooftops. If you got an award, right up at the top. Award winner of the whatever Chris McKeon Award for excellence, right? There you go, right up at the top of your resume. Like, or if you've been published, if you have a paper published, boom, right up at the top of the resume, front and center. I can't stress that enough. I feel in our society as a whole, we're kind of taught to not, don't be braggadocious, don't be arrogant. It's not arrogance. You are explaining why you're good for this role. Two different things. So interview prep and execution. So how to prepare for your interview. So, this all seems sort of rudimentary and obvious, but it's worth noting because you'd be surprised the amount of people that I talk to that don't do half of these things that you see on your screen. Know the team, know the organization, know where it sits in the org. Like if your recruiter is good, they've given you all this information, and it is not an imposition at all for you to say, hey, can we have just a follow-up call ahead of the interview so I can just kind of go through, like, I know you told me before, but can we just go through it again? But I would love it if more candidates did that for me, because now I have a reason to make sure that I prep them and give them what they need to be successful in the interview. And it also gives off the impression that you care, that you're taking this seriously. Like, these are all just good things to know. And again, know the names and titles of who you're meeting with. A good recruiter should give this to you ahead of the interview. Reread the job description. This one I can take or leave this one, and I'm going to go a step further and say not all job descriptions are very descriptive. Our job descriptions at the Home Depot are written to be very generic, to apply to a lot of jobs, but they will oftentimes not capture the nuance of each and every role and each and every team, like all the teams I was describing earlier. So the job, while it'll give you the core of what you'll be doing, and you can read about our job description will tell you about our competencies and what we look for, and some of them talk about our value wheel, and like it'll give you the core of what it is, but the nuance will be lost in most cases, especially at enterprise companies, where if we were to write a job description for every role we posted, that's like a full-time job for like 20 people. So not really feasible. But reread the job description, and then again, call your recruiter, ask them for notes. Oftentimes I will share my notes from the intake that I did with the hiring manager. So now you're getting, like, it's in my shorthand, right? And I explain that. So, let me know if you have any questions, but is what I'll say to them. But oftentimes I'll share my notes, right from our intake we did about the role. So you're getting literally right from the horse's mouth. And it's again, not an imposition to ask these questions. Anticipate potential questions. If you know the role is going to be about SQL, have some SQL examples ready. Sometimes that you use SQL to solve complex problems. Get a good night's sleep, a full 8 hours, drink water. Like you can have an effective interview on, less than 8 hours of sleep. But again, there is a physical manifestation of, and people like we're fight or flight, right? We're making snap judgments on people when we meet them. And if you don't appear alert, if you don't appear like you're engaged, if your eyes are glazed over, you may be listening, but it sends the wrong message. And then lastly, dress for success. There's a lot of, you probably get a lot of differing opinions on this. One of the big prevailing sort of like wisdom here is like, oh, dress for a day on the job. I don't care for that. And my reasoning for this is like, I'm of the opinion that you cannot overdress for an interview. I don't think you can do it. I don't think any interview you go to, if you're wearing a blazer and a tie, no one's going to say like, oh God, this guy wore a tie. Can you believe it? Like no, you're taking it seriously. You're there. You're here to show up and do the job and do the best, have the best interview you can. I don't think you can overdress for an interview. And also dressing for a day on the job. If you're interviewing for a call center, a lot of call centers wear jeans and polos. I wouldn't go to an interview in jeans and polos. I don't think anybody would. So that I don't particularly agree with that thought process. And again, if you can overdo it and it's not going to hurt you, why wouldn't you? Just my 2 cents. So Home Depot heavily utilizes the STAR method when when interviewing. So this is in every interview that you go through, almost every interview when you go through at the Home Depot, they will be looking for you to respond using the STAR method. And I'm not going to drain this column because most people are familiar with this, but this is just a way for you to have like a mental checklist in your brain as you answer a question and give you some guardrails, right? Oftentimes our jobs are so complex and they are so interwoven with other teams and there's so many other things going on that it's very easy to start telling a story and answering a question and start at A and end up at 42, right? Like you can go right off the rails and end up on planet X with little to no like knowledge that you've even done it until you're already there, and then you gotta reel it back in and your answer becomes disjointed. You want to give concise answers and answers that have what the interviewer is looking for. The STAR method is the way to do that. Definitely familiarize yourself with it, implement it in your question answering, and it will not steer you wrong. It's just a way to, because you can talk yourself out of a job. You absolutely can. If it's taking you 20 minutes to answer a question, you probably didn't use the STAR method. So, food for thought there. Familiarize yourself with it. It's only going to help you. So here's some considerations. Sit comfortably but alert. What I mean by that is I would definitely don't slouch, obviously. Never sit like this with your arms crossed. It's bad body language, it's bad posture. You're sending a subliminal message to your interviewer that you're closed off, that you might not be receptive. My preferred stance in an interview is legs crossed, arms on my knees. This is you have no choice but to sit up. And I know you guys can't see, but I got my hands placed like this in my lap. This shows that you're engaged, you're paying attention, you're relaxed, you're not, if you're sitting straight up, both feet flat on the floor, you can appear nervous and maybe not confident. These are not messages that you want to send. So that's my preferred go-to pose when I'm interviewing. But do whatever feels comfortable for you. But try to just, again, comfortably but alert. And again, here's another no-brainer, but I kind of take it a step further and say, complex questions, open-ended questions, not, do you guys offer PTO? Yes. Next question. No. Of course they offer PTO. Of course they have, healthcare, right? Complex questions. Tell me about what the future you see for your team is, right? What is my path for advancement? Great question, by the way. And a lot of times there'll be like other more nuanced job specific questions that you can ask. I would have at least 3 in your back pocket in every interview. And I would make, and the more specific to the role you can make them, the better, because again, and I keep coming back to this, it shows that your intent, it shows that you've taken this seriously. You're intentional, by interviewing. You're not just interviewing everywhere just to do it. You're doing your homework. These are all things that, even if you maybe slipped up on a question or two, these things could, hypothetically trump those. So, food for thought. Ask for a timeline. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, when can I expect next steps? When can I expect, somebody to, get back to me? And then if they don't, who should I follow up with? These are, knowing you as the candidate have every right to set that expectation and have that expectation set for you. So absolutely, at the end of every interview, ask for what next steps are, how long until I can expect a response. At the end of every interview, I'm a big fan of putting the interviewers on the spot. Hey, thank you for interviewing me today. Did I say anything today that you maybe have some concerns about that I can address right now? Love this tactic. But ask for feedback. Take it seriously. Feedback, the greatest gift anybody can give you, and there's 2 of them. 1 is their time, and 2 is honest feedback. It's the only way we grow as people. So being able to receive honest feedback, be coachable, again, huge gift, and you should definitely take it seriously because it's only going to help you in your next role. I tell a lot of our internal associates when they interview for roles internally, I say, hey, listen, the worst thing that's going to happen by you interviewing, the worst thing is going to be that you get some really solid feedback from a leader in this company that you can then take action on. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. So why not interview if you're interested? It just makes sense to me. And then send a thank you note, guys. The lost art of the thank you note. I'm not saying it has to be handwritten on Egyptian papyrus, like, with calligraphy, letters. Like, no. A simple email, if you have their email address, or email the recruiter and ask them to pass it along. That's pretty common practice. Just saying thank you for your time. Again, the greatest gift somebody can give you is their time. They gave it to you. They heard you out. They let you answer questions. Let you ask questions. Saying thank you is just, it's never going to get you the job. Because you sent a thank you note doesn't mean that you are going to get the job. But what it is going to do is going to establish you as just a good person and a nice person, and set you up for maybe the next job, or maybe another role, or maybe they refer your name to somebody else. That's what it's going to do. It's going to establish you as a decent human being. And that's really, honestly, like, if you got to spend 40 hours a week with somebody, you should at least like them, and they should be a good person. So that's what that is going to, that's the message that will send. So before I go any further to the next slide, this is a lot of information. So I want to stop talking for a second and see if there's any questions so far, before I get into my shameless, oh, it is so shameless, I'm going to lay it on thick, plug for the Home Depot and why I choose to work there.
Chris, I think your second to last point about just requesting feedback at the end of the interview, I always coach to, whenever there's a response that's given and it's a little bit lengthy, at the end of that, to ask, like, close on that, have some closure, and ask, did I give you enough information on that? Did I answer that? Is that what you were looking for? Something like that, just to, so it's not so just robotically back and forth with the two people. So,
that's a great, that is a great tip. The number one piece of feedback I hear from managers at the Home Depot when they're telling me why they did not select somebody, this is the truth. The number one piece of feedback I get is they say, their answers didn't have enough detail. So again, don't make assumptions about the person you're talking to. Don't assume they know, because they're in the industry, they know what it takes to build a Tableau dashboard. You don't make those assumptions, because what you're really doing is leaving out important pieces of information that's making them think, hey, maybe he didn't do this, but what they said they did. Maybe they were just on an adjacent team. I don't know how close they were to this project. Details. But again, within reason, right? It shouldn't take you 20 minutes to answer a question. But don't skimp, don't make assumptions. And then yes, always, check them at the end. Say, hey, did I go deep enough? I can go deeper if you need me to. Like, yes, JB, that's an amazing point. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's a great interview practice, and it really, and sometimes they'll go, you know what? No, can you walk me through XYZ? And then now you've basically gotten an extra life, right? You've gotten a 1-up, and now you can go ahead and you get a second shot to go even deeper, and can answer the question the way they want to hear
it. Thanks, Chris, again for walking through all this. I did have a question around, earlier when you were talking about indicating gaps, which I thought was pretty interesting. How would you describe to probably show that on your resume? Do you put it in line with your other experiences, just as the timeline, as you're, I guess, doing the timeline of your recent to, I guess, oldest experiences, you just put it in where it fits?
Yeah. No, chronological order, same formatting. Don't overdo it. I've seen resumes where they're like, stay-at-home dad, ensured, that kids were at school on time. That, I guess that's funny for a viral thing. There's no need to overdo it. Just, hey, stay-at-home dad, during this period, rejoin the, now looking to rejoin the workforce. Done. And the only reason I say that is because I find that to be funny and endearing, but you never know what somebody else is going to think, right? So you want your resume to appear as non-polarizing as humanly possible. But yeah, chronological order, consistent formatting, and fit it right where it is. Because a recruiter is doing that. As a recruiter, I'm looking chronologically, and I'm drawing connections between, okay, well, he left this job at this point, and he started here. And the other thing about dates, month and year. Don't do just years, because again, that invites a red flag, right? That invites, oh, well, did he, he could have, what was going on? When did he leave? So month and year, at the very least. And, and again, draw, chronologically, your resume should be written in such a way that I know at any given time in your life, I know exactly what you were doing, when you were doing it, and why you were doing it, even if I've never met you before.
Someone is at the front door.
Oh, and somebody's at my door. So this is.
Hey, Chris, how you doing? My name is Kenny Peach. So this is some great information. I really like it. When I'm coaching employees, when I'm coaching new employees to my organization, even to move up in our organization, resumes are key. I like how you have how to prepare, because when you start to think about preparing, I always tell everyone that I'm coaching to move on to the next level or a new role, even a role with us. It's really it's preparation. It's really going into LinkedIn, adding them on LinkedIn, making sure that you're touching base with them on LinkedIn. Make sure you understand. I want to know where Chris came from. I want to know who he came from. So if we start talking about, we start shooting it, because you're going to want to know who I am before you hire me. The rest of the stuff is great. So you want an understanding of what I know about the job, what I can do for that. And what is Home Depot? Where did we come from? Where did we start? How many establishments do we have? There's a lot of key things where preparation to me is almost more important than the resume, because when I'm thinking, I'm like, well, once I'm prepared, well, guess what? Now I can write my resume tailored for your position. I mean, this is great stuff. And then the first part in the beginning when I jumped on was that one pager. Everyone has that myth in their head that they have to lock so much information into a one pager. I mean, if I tried to lock my history of technology into a one pager, I would cut myself short. I mean, I would try to be so focused that I would never show up on anybody's talent search. And that's what they're doing now. I mean, in the talent search, you hit it right on the nail on the head. If you're not doing those key attributes, you mentioned Tableau dashboard. If you don't know how to make a Tableau dashboard, Salesforce.com, ERP systems, Oracles, networking, servers, whatever it is, customer service. If you don't have those keywords in there, they're not going to look at you. I know the recruiters I work with won't look at you. So this is great stuff, Chris. Thank you.
Hey, no, you're so welcome, Kenny. I appreciate the real-time feedback. I can't, like, that is and every once in a while I will see people on social media, like, they claim to be experts in the space, saying your resume, like, they'll say it flat out, your resume should fit in one. And I wish I could reach through the the phone and just like scream at them, because like it's so false. It's so I go back to, like, it's robbing you of your experience, right? Like, I didn't go to work for the last in the staffing industry for the last 11 years, 40 hours a week, to like shave off experience to fit it on one digital page, right? Like, it does not compute for me. I hate that people do it now. Again, and everything is within reason, right? If you've been in the workforce for 3 years and your resume is 6 pages, well, maybe we can dial it back a little bit. But like, I mean, if you've been anywhere from 5 to 10 years, your resume probably should be 2 pages, maybe 2.5 pages long. That's just me. But yeah, I appreciate that, Kenny. Thanks for saying that, man.
Yeah, and one last thing was, we're not saying make it 10 pages, but we're saying make it focused. And make sure you get everything in there that you can focus on yourself. A lot of people try to focus on the position rather than focusing on what they did within the position. And I think that's a big negative, because you need to focus on what you did well. And don't be afraid with those questions. Like you said, to use the STAR method. Always have in your head 5 or 6 different scenarios that can come up that you can say, hey, I excelled in this, and a challenge that I have was this. A lot of people forget the challenge part, where to me, I always call out my challenges. My challenges are very simple. And once you understand what your challenges are, now you can explain how you're working on them to that recruiter. And guess what? They're going to think so much more of you. It's so amazing. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, no, and yeah, that's actually a pretty good call out, because the one thing that people will do, and I'm guilty of myself, is that they situation and task, they'll mash them together, and they need to be 2 separate things. And the reason for this is because the situation is you're setting up. This is the story setup, right? This is the rising action, okay? And again, this goes back to don't make assumptions. Don't assume this person knows what you're talking about, right? Lay the groundwork. And then now here's our, like, to use like movie terms, right? Like, here's our MacGuffin. Here's what I was tasked to do. Here's what's going to move the plot of this forward, what you did, and then how it ended up. And it is okay to use a bad example. If it didn't turn out good for you, that's fine. And sometimes, depending on the question you're being asked, sometimes it's even better. It shows professional maturity, because then you now have the opportunity to say something like, this didn't go the way I'd hoped. The project didn't work out. But I learned a lot. Here's what I learned, right? Like, so now not only are you answering the question that they want, but you're showing a level of professional maturity that, you know, you can't teach that, right? You only get it through experience. And so those are, it's okay to use an example that didn't turn out great. Like, that's perfectly acceptable. Anybody else? Before I move on to my shameless plug? All right. Well, here's a photo of me with ridiculously long hair, and I want to talk to you guys just to round this out, and then I'll absolutely sit and take more questions. But why I came to the Home Depot and why I stay at the Home Depot. A long time, in the staffing industry, and the staffing industry is a really tough space. And what I was finding is that I didn't have the chutzpah, to keep going, and just to stay in the industry anymore. It's volatile, it's difficult. I was about to be a first-time dad. I just needed some stability. And as much as I loved working with JV and I loved the crew at Matrix, if it was a different industry, I would have stayed my whole career there, because they're an excellent company and they do it right. They do it how I would, how I would do it if I ran my own company. But it was an industry thing where I just, with the agency staffing industry, that I just couldn't do it anymore. And I was kind of like plucked out of obscurity. I got very lucky. I got, my manager at the time, he happened to call me just picked my resume out of a hat, and we had a conversation and it went well. And long story short, here I am today. So, but in this day and age, I mean, I have every day, which I'm sure all of you do too. Every day I get at least one message from a recruiter on LinkedIn asking me to go do something else. Why do I stay at Home Depot? Apart from being, working at one of the world's most recognizable brands, the company has just an intense focus on career growth and career mobility. And I can't say that word career mobility enough. I can't overstate that, because I can't tell you how many times that I've seen someone, because the enterprise is so large, I've seen someone come from one industry or one vertical and go do something completely different. The company fosters it fosters that type of ethos, right? Like, if they believe that if you're doing work that you're really interested in, we're going to get the best work out of you. So why not enable our associates to go ahead and pursue, maybe they want to be software engineers, pursue software engineering. I tell people all the time, I say, hey, look, if I woke up tomorrow and just said, hey, you know what, finance is finance analytics, financial accounting, that's what I want to do. It just does it for me. It doesn't, by the way. I cannot, nothing is like more boring to me. But if I woke up tomorrow and I said, this is what I want to do, my boss, she'd be the first person on the phone, Cambry, if you're still on, she'd be the first person on the phone calling up everybody she knows in finance and asking, helping me set up meetings. It is a culture of like, hey, like, if you want to go somewhere and 3 years go by and you're still sitting in the same seat, I have failed you as a manager. And that's not just in my vertical. I saw it in technology. I see it in supply chain. I see it with my friends in HR. It is a company-wide ethos, and it goes back to a quote that Bernie Marcus had in their book Built from Scratch. And if you guys haven't read it, it is a good read, and I'm not just saying that. The quote is, if we take care of the associate will take care of the customer, and everything else takes care of itself. And it's true. I feel so looked after and promoted, and I had to go through, I had to get several approvals just to come here tonight. But everyone was very supportive, and they support my career. So it's just that type of culture, and it makes me want to go do good things out in the world to evangelize the Home Depot. So, the company lives its values is the next bullet point here. I mean, I'm sure none of us have not worked for a company that didn't have a set of core values, right? Like everyone's got them. Most of the time they're just lip service. But this is one place where, and it's not the first place, but it is one place where they really live their core values. I'll give you an example. So one of the core values is doing the right thing. There's 8 total. You guys, if you go on and just Google Home Depot core values, you'll see the value wheel. I should have put it on this page, and I kind of whiffed on that. But when doing the right thing, so when Hurricane Harvey sat over Houston and basically dropped like 4.5 feet of rain on that city, we had associates that worked in the store that were unaccounted for, no idea where they were. And this is a problem for us. An internal communication, and you'll never hear about this in the news, by the way, because this is not like we're not a braggadocious company. So this is, but this is part of like Home Depot like legend. An internal communication went out and said, hey, anybody that works here that has a bass fishing boat, saddle up, because we're going to go get our associates. And that's exactly what happened. They all caravanned out to Texas with their bass fishing boats, and they were pulling associates that worked in the store off of the roofs of their home. This was all done like this wasn't a sponsored event. Like this wasn't look at us, we did a Habitat for Humanity or something like that. No, this was an impromptu, like we need to get out there like now. It's like no other country no other company in the country has that story. And I love that story so much because it's such a like incredible mobilization of efforts I love telling people that. Another one of the core values is the entrepreneurial spirit. That's how the company was started. Bernie Marcus and Arthur Blank left Handy Dan to start their own, big box, home improvement company. There's always white space provided for innovation. I'll give you another example. I sat down in front of my boss about 2 years ago, and I said, my boss at the time, I said, Carly, listen, I get this crazy idea. What if we had a Twitch channel for the Home Depot and we used it, we let our associates game on it, stream games, and talk about what it's like to work at the Home Depot? And she looked at me and said, what is Twitch? And I had to then go, and I was like, okay, well, it's people who play video games. And then her next thing was, are you telling me people watch other people play video games? I'm like, yes, it sounds weird when you say it like that, but yes, they do. So she had no idea what I was talking about. But the conversation ended with her saying, okay, I am interested enough to tell you to go, let's go bird dog this down and let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. And we did just that. Earlier this year, we went public with the Home Depot's, the Home Depot's Twitch channel. And it's the first Twitch channel for a Fortune 20 company ever. And I got to do that because of a crazy idea I had one morning when I was, getting ready for work. I don't know another place where I would have been afforded. They would have said, okay, yeah, we'll think about it. Better luck next time, Chris. But no, I was allowed to take this from infancy all the way to fruition, and it involved a lot of cross-functional partnerships. It was a great career, building moment because I got to flex a lot of muscles. But they invested in me, and I see it. And again, I don't just see it in talent acquisition. I see it everywhere. They invest in their associates. And it's just a great feeling to have an idea and then come, see it to fruition. Obviously, we employ over 600,000 people. The scope and just of the enterprise is so large that if there is something you want to do, chances are we're doing it. Chances are you can have a chance to do it. Like for a while, I was very interested in our political action committee. Like they're up in DC lobbying. We don't take any sort of political affiliation, but we lobby for things that are important to the Home Depot, like helping people legislate against organized crime to stop shrink. That's something that we lobby for. So it's a very, like anything that if you have an interest, I promise you we're doing it. The enterprise is so large. I turn around every day and find a team that I didn't know existed. So it's just a very incredibly interesting space, and there's always something new to learn. And then lastly, I am a ginger. I have red hair. I was worried orange would clash with this whole look. Turns out it doesn't. It looks great on me. My wife loves it. That's why I'm growing my hair out. Guys, if you're looking for the next step in your career and you're looking for somewhere to go to, to advance yourself, or to, to get your hands on new technologies, or to just be invested in, like, there is no better place than the Home Depot. And thus concludes my presentation.
Well, yeah, thank you, Chris. That's all good.
Is that good? Did I lay it on too thick?
No, it's good.
No,
Like,
not at all.
definitely hearing you push for the Twitch account at the end. I'm curious. I was actually trying to log into Twitch to find it. I don't stream, but it's always cool to find interesting channels. So,
Yeah,
if
I
there is
will,
a public link, then feel free
yeah,
to share.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I will. I'm gonna put my my email in the chat. So I meant what I said. Please, everybody, please email me. Feel free to reach out. Like I said, if I'm not the recruiter, I will know who to connect you to. So please feel free to email me if you're interested in any position you see on the Home Depot careers page. And then I will also put the careers page. It's just careers.homedepot.com. And probably should spell careers right. That would be helpful. And then I'll, you know what? I'll also put I'll put our Twitch URL in there as well for those of you who are even remotely interested. So look, we covered a lot of ground, and there's stuff that I left out just for time's sake. Cover letters, and like how are you talking to your recruiter? Like, how are you interacting with them? When should you be maybe thinking about, try and find another recruiter? Anything, I'm happy to answer any questions. So please feel free, to pepper me with them.
This was great, Chris.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. I mean, you were so thorough in your procedure and how you presented. I think a lot of the questions were answered as you went along. So thank you very much for that presentation. Honestly, right now I'm thinking, wow, how can I get you to start teaching some of these high schools on kids how to write resumes? Because that was amazing. So
hey, listen, I'm available. All right, so I'm happy to do it. If you ever need some help, I would love to join. But no, thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate that. I mean, this is stuff that I have cultivated over an 11-year career. I'm happy that I get, thank you to John and to Shanika for giving me a platform to talk about this stuff, because it drives me nuts. And I'm usually, like, when I see these common mistakes and the one-page resume thing, like, and I'm usually addressing it one person at a time. So being able to kind of put it out to the masses, it's, makes me feel good. So thank you for saying that, Kenny. I appreciate it.
And I do have one question. Let's start talking about minorities. So I'm the chair of my ERG for recruitment and retainment for Hispanics and Latinos at Extreme Networks. And when we're creating ERGs and employee resource groups to actually get the passion out for Latinos. And remember, we have Black at Extreme, we have LGBTQ plus at Extreme, we have everything. What are they doing at Home Depot to gain the minority and the employees, and how are you recruiting more minorities? And now, because, one thing that I've noticed is people hire from people that look like them, and it's a proven fact. And we're trying to change the entire, environment, one director at a time by, the biggest thing we have here, at least at Extreme, is that they just don't know that they do it. And once you get that out there, then it's like, hey, wait a second. I'm doing that. I'm really doing that. And one thing that was very passionate to me was you don't look at the name. So for me, and don't get me wrong, all of us are biased in a way, and we can't say that we're not, because we are. And when we look at a name, you see Luis Rodriguez, all of a sudden you have a Hispanic Latino male, or, you can look at a name called Alex. Well, guess what? That could be a boy or a girl, and that could be male or female. So I like your point that you made where you said, I don't look at names. I look at to see if they have the talent, the qualifications, and the education. If they have that in my keywords, then now I care to talk to you. This is fantastic. So what are you guys doing at Home Depot for minorities?
Oh man, I'm so glad you asked that, because I did like kind of like glazed over that a little bit, but yeah. So there's a bunch of examples, but I'll kind of cover some like high level ones. The first thing is we hired a DE&I officer, Derek Bottoms. So he is the wife of former Mayor oh my God, Felicia,
Husband of Keisha Lance Bottoms.
I'm sorry, husband of Keisha
Yeah.
Keisha Lance Bottoms. So he leads all, like we have somebody in charge of all those efforts now. In technology, a big push was made for everyone to read a book called Inclusify by Dr. Stephanie Johnson. That is where I got the no more names for me thing. My mentor is a director of in-home services in the technology space. And he really highly encouraged me to read it. And I did, and I loved every minute of it. It was such an insightful book, because one of the things, and you kind of touched on it, Kenny, which is like, you can't defeat your unconscious bias until you recognize it. And then you have to count it. You have to realize that this is a thing. This is, I'm always going to do it. Like I can't help it. I'm only human. So you got to count it, and then you got to take it out. Like you got to find a way to maneuver around it. So that was one big push. All the leaders read that book in technology, every single one. Dr. Johnson actually came and talked to the technology org. The other thing we do is as recruiters, like a part of my job is, a large part of my job is tracking metrics, and we're tracking our hires. And hey, and we're also driving a change on the front end by asking our business partners and the managers that we support. We're saying, hey, your interview panel could be more diverse. Do you have anyone on the team or an adjacent team that on this interview panel that, we're always trying to get them to push for more diverse panels. And I've never, not to this day, ever received any pushback on that. A lot of times like, oh, yeah, because to your point, like people don't even know, you don't even know you're doing it, right? Like, so it's not like, oh, it's coming from a bad place, right? You don't even know. So yeah, as recruiters, we're constantly pushing to diversify interviewers, and we're constantly pushing for diverse talent and doing things like this, and showing up to like women who code, right? Like Afrotech is another one we go to every year. So yeah, constantly trying to to diversify our candidate slate.
Great job tonight, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, JV.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I'm definitely looking forward to sharing this with any new mentees that I get in upcoming months, and it's good information, and it's also good refreshers and details for me as well, because I know people say you should always stay ready and like be open to opportunities. So it's always good to get these details.
Yeah, some of the best professional advice I ever got, Shanika, was if you feel like you can do your job with your eyes closed, it's already too late. You got to keep pushing, be uncomfortable in your role, do things that you're not sure about. Like that's the only way you grow professionally. So, food for thought, think about it. But thank you, JV. Thank you, Shanika. Thank you, BDPA. Guys, this has been, again, like a dream come true. I've always wanted to like speak to people about, what I do and how important this is to me and how passionate I am about recruiting and, diversity. And so this has been a real pleasure for me. And I hope you'll have me back someday. Maybe we'll talk about a different topic. But I really, really, really appreciate the time and everybody staying to listen. I know it's late, so let's go have some
dinner. It shows, we all know how you feel. Just listening to you, you speak from the heart, and you held us, with everything that you were talking about because of that. So awesome job. I'm just going to throw like a little quick plug for next month. I have yet another ex-teammate. His name is Damian Phillips, and he's a senior recruiter at Meta, and he's in the machine learning space there. So he's going to come on and talk about machine learning and, the metaverse, I guess.
Oh man.
So it should be interesting. You're welcome to join, Chris.
I was going to say, I might actually show up for that.
You should.
Very interesting.
It'll be good.
So. Yeah, definitely open to all. So, Yep. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then I'll close it here for this evening. Thank you, Chris, and thank you again, John, for getting us connected. And thank you, everyone that's attended. It's good.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
Have a good
evening. Everybody, thank you.